We're coming to you live from our studios in Kukumlemle, Accra on DSTV channel 42 and Go TV channel 144, around the world at myjoyonline.com and on your TV because we're free to air. Now, daily shortage of water is fast becoming the norm in parts of the Tema metropolis, which has been battling the challenge for ages now. Residents say an announcement of more disruptions to the already erratic supply of the utility by the Ghana Water Company last week has worsened their plight. They say they are forced to either buy water from private suppliers at exorbitant prices or travel several kilometers to draw water wherever they can find it. They want government to intervene immediately to deal with the situation. As part of our Safe Water project, my colleague Manuel Quanting spent the day in Tema and reports.
Even though Ghana met the drinking water target for the Millennium Development Goals 5 years ahead of the 2015 deadline, access is still not uniform across the country. While rural areas are easily suspected to have the challenge, some residents in peri-urban areas are also affected. A typical example, Tema New Town in the Tema metropolis and its environs.
I bathed with only 3 cups of water this morning. There's no water here.
5 days bobo ya flag ya ne mono ya foe oka wo mi oka ya mono ya bobo ya wo oka ya o ya low.
They use the tricycles to get the water from other communities. The situation is even worse up the hill.
According to the residents, this challenge, which has existed for years, only got worse after scheduled cuts in the already staggered supply from the Ghana Water Company Limited. The Skinky Seller's shop has been closed for days.
The taps haven't been flowing for over a week now. I just want to buy these gallons of water. One costs 1 cedi 50 pesos, so I couldn't even open my shop today.
15 cedi, 1 cedi 50 pesos.
With gallons lined up in front of every household, tricycle riders are the biggest gainers of the situation. We supply the water at a charge. Today I've supplied more than 150 gallons. So when they call us, we go and pick them up.
Because 100 40 gallons, 60.
For those who cannot afford to pay, they travel several kilometers to fetch milky water from this dugout.
It's like a gutter. It's been over a month since the taps were closed.
For some weekends today, the water is not more coming where that's why it becomes like washing. Some to use to bath, but you cannot use it to cook because there is salt inside, that's why. And this thing, there are small animals, bacteria inside. So that one you can use it to wash, but you cannot use it to cook.
Okay. Since last 2 weeks, water has become a problem to us. And this is the place we have been washing. Some have been fetching water to their homes. Oh, the water is not clean and we don't know where the water is coming from. Mayam is one, Bankuman, Abonko, Awudum, B-Park, Ju, To, and stuffs.
It's very critical condition that we are facing right now. As in the tap that they've closed, it's really giving us stress, and like it's so difficult for us to get water, even to drink. So for drinking, we ought to buy the sachet water, which is the pure water. And we boys like this, we are in one room. At times, we used to spend our 20 cedis in a day just for sachet water, drinking, not even for bathing. At times, we don't even bath for a day. This is the vacuum company here, and like they have some some water gutter. It's even a gutter, not a clean water. It's a gutter that we used to fetch to bath, and others too have been fetching it to their various home. For them, I don't know what they use it for.
So this is the daily site here in Tema, but at least the Tema Newtown area, where you have the Valco Aluminium Smelting Company. Well, daily, the young and old throng to these gutters, makeshift wells and dugouts to be able to access some form of water for their daily needs. We know they spend so much on water that they drink, but until the Ghana Water Company Limited restores supply of water to their homes, this is all they're left with. Reporting for Joy News, my name is Manuel Cranting.
Well, in response to this, communications manager of the Ghana Water Company Limited, Stanley Marty, said that the taps, water was flowing, but it needed more time to build pressure for residents to get the flow in their homes. And so by close of day today, they should expect the water. Away from that, the Ghana Education Service, GES, has made another change in the 2021 academic calendar for senior high school students. In a letter dated 26th April 2021 and signed by its Director General in charge of Quality and Access, the service announced that SHS1 Old Gold Track students are to vacate on the 4th of May instead of the original May 28th. Earlier this month, the GES, in a letter signed by its PRO, announced the postponement of reopening date for third-year senior high school students on a day when some of them had either arrived in school or were en route. This latest adjustment to the calendar has got many parents and analysts worried about the impact of the decisions on learning. We've been joined by Executive Director of Africa Education Watch, Mr. Kofi Asare. Thank you very much for your time. Now, do you agree with those who say that the recent adjustments by GES proves that the service is having some difficulty in managing the free senior high school policy? Hello, Mr. Asare. Well, we seem to have a problem there. Kofi Asare is Executive Director of Africa Education Watch, and he's supposed to join us to have a conversation about the adjustments made to the 2021 academic calendar. Can you kindly unmute and speak, sir? If you heard me, I was asking about the latest adjustments made to the calendar, 2021 academic calendar for senior high school students. There are those who believe that this proves that the GES is struggling to manage the free senior high school policy. Do you agree? Too bad we lost Mr. Kofi Asare there, but he's Executive Director of Africa Education Watch. The technical team will try and raise him back on the line. But away from that, former Power Minister Dr. Kwabena Donkor says government must, as a matter of urgency, institute a probe into alleged illegal activities of some oil marketing companies in the petroleum downstream sector. He described as alarming details of the 2020 petroleum supply sheet for the downstream sector, which established that OMCs with little physical presence are lifting huge volumes of petroleum products. We'll bring you more on this, but let's take you back to the story about the GES making some changes or adjustments to the 2021 academic calendar for senior high school students. And thankfully, we've been able to raise Executive Director of the Africa Education Watch, Kofi Asare, on the line. Thank you so much for your time here this afternoon, sir. Well, there are those who say that the recent adjustments prove that the GES may be struggling to manage the free senior high school policy. Do you agree?
Struggling is another statement. Indeed, there's a whole confusion, surrounding the management of the calendar for the water school. It didn't start now, it started in 2018. Averagely, one could count up to 8 times the number of, 8 times, the changes that are effective to the academic year calendar, every academic year. This year alone, this is about the 4th time. And the peculiar thing about this year is that the changes are even mistakes. For instance, in the present communication, we have 2 days, 2 different days for the reopening, for the vacation for senior high school single track students. In the same letter, we have in paragraph 1 that senior high school 1 students in single track schools will vacate on 15th June. And then in the next paragraph, it says again that senior high schools in single track schools will vacate on 16th July. So we don't know which is which. And so what is, quite disturbing about this particular year's calendar is that it is more erratic even than the previous ones that I've experienced. And we get a sense that the GES is not learning from the lessons of running the good class for over a 3-year period. We all admit that, yes, it is challenging shuffling students, with amongst tracks because of the limited infrastructure and space. We appreciate that. But the fact that we are running the good class should not be an excuse for mediocrity. Neither should it be an excuse for us not to learn from the experience in managing academic calendar since 2008. We are in the 4th year, for God's sake. And so, even though we may acknowledge or appreciate that there may be challenges, this shouldn't be basic challenges that, emerged in year 1 or year 2 of the double track management. This is year 4. And so we expect a higher standard of care, a higher diligence, and then higher levels of skill in managing the academic calendar of the senior high school.
Mr. Sarah, let's come to how this affects the students. And I'd appreciate it if you raise your voice a bit. It's quite difficult hearing you. So for the SHS1 students, for example, who've been asked to now vacate on the 5th of May instead of the original May 28, it means that they're going to lose out on some contact hours with their teachers. And this would also affect the curriculum or the syllabus as it's been spelled out. How do you think we can go about this to ensure that the students are not gravely affected?
Yeah, let me indicate that it is not necessarily, or it would not necessarily lead to a loss of contact hours, because all the time the seniors will find a way of prolonging the next academic session.
Okay.
To make amends for the lost instructional hours. And so it will not necessarily affect instructional hours. But the dimension of impact is that, 1, it affects parental plans, of their entire life. Parents have planned that in June, students would have been vacated per the earlier calendar. So they've taken their vacation because most parents have to be home to take care of kids while they are on vacation. Now, suddenly, communication comes, or perhaps even yet to arrive to the student that your child who enrolled in school on 15th or 16th of March, who was expected to be in school for 3 months or so, is suddenly coming home next week. How many parents are going to be reached within this short period? And how many of them are even reachable? So parents have planned their vacations, they have planned their leave, they have to go and take their leave, even if employers are going to agree. Apart from that, it comes with cost. Such changes come with cost, and we think that it is it is in a way affecting the quality of teaching and learning too. Because teachers will now have to revise their plans. Teachers are parents themselves too. They have to revise their plans. I know a teacher who's teaching AGRIC and teaching mathematics. And so he's teaching this track and this track. So immediately the vacate is continuing. This is not what they may have planned at the beginning. And so not having adequate, not having the chance to plan your life alone, it's enough disruption to your life that affects the quality of output, both of teachers and other parents who should be working otherwise.
I appreciate your time this afternoon. Kofi Asare is Executive Director of Africa Education Watch, and he's been commenting on the latest adjustment to the 2021 academic calendar for senior high school students. You're watching Joy News Today with me, Bernice Abubedulansa. We've got more for you right after this. To stay. I'm grateful that you could stay here on Joy News today. Now, an immunologist with the West Africa Center for Cell Biology of Infectious Pathogens, WACBIP, Dr. Yaw Bediako, has cautioned Ghana against the immediate use of the Sputnik V COVID vaccines. This comes on the back of concerns that some batches of the Russian Sputnik V COVID vaccine sent to Brazil carried a live version of cold-causing virus. Brazil has banned the import of the drug. Speaking on News Desk earlier, Dr. Yaw Bediako said Ghana must be cautious in administering the Sputnik V doses, and it's in the Food and Drugs Authority's right to revisit its earlier approval.
European Medical Agency is currently evaluating Sputnik V. And I believe, it will be in our best interest to wait for that evaluation to be completed before we make a decision, because this is new information that has previously not been available. The emergency use authorization awarded Sputnik V in Ghana at the time did not have the benefit of this information. Now that these reports have been reported by a number of news agencies, including Reuters, from Brazil, and in fact, the Brazilian government have refused to approve this vaccine based on this information, I think Ghana, we have to sort of be cautious before we administer this vaccine, because if it is true that indeed these vaccines have been compromised, then we do not want them to be administered to the Ghanaian people. There are a couple of things that potentially could go wrong. As I said, the whole point of the genetic modification is so that the virus, the vector itself, only goes through a single cycle and then is cleared. You basically do not want to give somebody, because these adenoviruses cause colds, right? So you don't want to give somebody a high dose of a virus that is capable of replicating. It is, we all hear about, when we've talked about vaccines, we always say they give you a weakened form of the virus. Well, in this case, the data suggests that this has not been weakened. And so it could create certain issues. Another problem is usually, in order for the vector to carry the spike protein, which is the SARS-CoV-2 protein of interest, you have to remove one piece of the DNA and then replace it with a different one. The fact that this virus is able to replicate suggests that it may have lost the spike. So if it has lost the spike, then it's not going to give you any protection against SARS-CoV-2. So there are a lot of unknowns. Currently, all we can go off is this initial report, but it has raised significant questions about not just the efficacy, but in many ways, even the safety of the Sputnik. I'm very sure that our FDA is looking at it. And if it does prove to be credible, they may need to revise their authorization. That is well within their rights. It would not mean they made a mistake. It's just that now there's new information available. And if they take that new information on board and they think it's credible, they may reverse their decision to license the Sputnik.
KARIKARI-BOATEng is head of Laboratories at the Food and Drugs Authority, FDA. He joins us on the line on this latest development. Thank you for your time here, sir. We know, like in the case of AstraZeneca, even though Sputnik is originally developed by Russia, they are sometimes given the license in different countries for reproduction. First off, do we know if what was studied in Brazil comes from the same source as what we have?
I'm sure you read what the Brazilians have put on the line. They did not mention the site where it's coming from. And that's an information not very, but then the one, we don't give, when we are giving emergency use authorization, it is site specific. You cannot bring it from any other site than the one that was approved for you to bring to Ghana here. The sites that were approved are coming from about 2 sites in Russia and So we know the sites where the products are supposed to come from.
All right, so in situations like this, when the FDA approves a product and there's emerging or new information, what are the protocols involved?
The protocols is that is ANVISA is a regulatory authority like us. We would look out for more information, specifically the parties that are involved and where it's coming from. That's something that will be done.
So this initial approval of the Sputnik V vaccine, can you run us through how it was arrived at?
Yes, I can run you through. Before any vaccine is granted, there's a difference between emergency use authorization and then marketing authorization. When we say marketing authorization, that will tell you that means all studies on quality, safety, and efficacy has been completed. That means the vaccine, how it is manufactured, the scale-up, with the difference between the commercial batches and the clinical batches, which are usually small, has been established. That's with respect to quality. All the specifications, the quality parameters have been established. When it comes to safety, that means they finish almost all the animal studies that ensure that the product is safe in animals. And then then the clinical, that means it would have gone through clinical phase 1, that is safety and tolerability, clinical phase 2, those finding and proof of concept of safety and efficacy. And then clinical phase 3, safety and efficacy of the vaccine has been compared. So after all that, you review, and if the data is right, you grant a marketing authorization, and subsequently post-marketing authorization, that is then that's in the real world. When people start getting side effects, then you start monitoring if it's the same as those that were observed in the clinical studies or they are different, then that can lead to maybe then revising the product information or even leading to withdrawal. That is marketing authorization.
So
I'm coming. You asked a question. Will you allow me to finish?
No, I will allow you to finish. I was just going to say, because we don't have time, if you could just get to it quickly.
Yeah, then the second one is an emergency use authorization. The difference is in emergency use authorization, that almost the development has not fully finished, but because of pandemic, you cannot wait for the development to finish. That's why you grant emergency use authorization based on a rolling submission. That means you take your decision on the information available.
Exactly. Okay, so in this case, now that you have new information, would the professional advice be that we hold on until we are able to independently verify the claims by Brazil, until we start administering Sputnik V?
Could I hear your question? What type of new information are you talking about?
The one from Brazil, that this could contain...
And did you see any specificity in what the Brazilians said?
But we just spoke to an immunologist who shared with us that those concerns must be looked at.
Yes, of course, it must be looked at. I heard you are very well. Yes, and what the points that he's raising are very valid. But that's what I'm saying. The Brazilian statement, did they tell you that the live virus, was it found in component 1 or component 2?
Sir, that's why I'm coming to you, because you are head of the laboratories at the FDA. And so you are the one who should tell us.
If you will listen, the component 1, the vaccine comes in 2 components. There's component 1, that is the adenoviral vector 26, and then the component 2, adenoviral vector 5. The component 1 has 10 specifications, identification, specific activity by culturing, specific activity by spectrophotometric method, cell protein content, residual DNA from cell culture.
Hello?
Residual DNA from cell culture. Let me finish.
Excuse me, sir. Your line is getting bad. We are losing you. If you could just reposition yourself.
Can you hear me now?
Much better.
Then, so that's up to 10. Then you come to component 2. The third quality parameter is specific safety. That they tell you that the drug should not contain no more than 50 replicated competent adenoviruses per dose. So maybe, and I know a lot of people have expressed concern that, no, why should the virus contain live particles? And then the clinical material, the material that was used in doing the clinical trial, that gets less than 50 replicated competent adenoviruses before the studies were carried out. And it was the safety and efficacy were based on this. So now, maybe we just have to go. We have to get to Anvisa to see what is their specific cause. Is it above the limit, or is below? The problem that they are saying? Is it like the material parameter that they are? Is it very different from the clinical material? Yes, that's a valid thing that has to be investigated.
Hello, Mr. KARIKARI-BOATEng.
Yes, madam.
Sorry. Okay, we lost you there again. But finally, before you go, so you're just saying that you may have to contact Anvisa and get more details on this.
Of course, we need further and better particulars.
Exactly, sir. I'm getting to a point. So while we receive the doses of Sputnik V this week, what will the FDA's advice be? That we hold on until you finish your own personal assessment of this, or we can still go ahead to use a Sputnik V?
Well, when we get hold of the vaccines, they have something that's called a lot release certificate. That's the difference between vaccines and then ordinary small molecule. In vaccines, every batch is released by the competent regulatory authority. In this case, it's going to be the Russian authority. So now I don't have the certificate of lot release. So I would have to, the FDA will have to wait for us to get the certificate of loss release compared to the clinical vaccine. From there, we move on. If the need be that we have to do the needful, we will do it. If we have to, if the virus is it can be done.
And is it of concern to the FDA that this is not approved by the World Health Organization and the European Medical Agency?
Why should it be a concern to us?
I appreciate your time here this afternoon. KARIKARI-BOATEng is head of laboratories at the Food and Drugs Authority. Moving on, former Power Minister Dr. Kwabena Donkor says government must, as a matter of urgency, institute a probe into alleged illegal activities of some oil marketing companies in the petroleum downstream sector. He described as alarming details of the 2020 petroleum supply sheet for the downstream sector, which established that OMCs with little physical presence are lifting huge volumes of petroleum products. Mr. Donkor tells Joy News there will be huge revenue loss if authorities in charge, including the NPA, fail to act swiftly.
There is an OMC whose name I won't mention, with very few stations doing about 4.8% of products. And you wonder, where are these products going, especially when it comes to gasoline and diesel, what we also call gas oil. These two products. The huge volumes being lifted by oil marketing companies with very little presence on the ground calls for worry. And I'm calling on the Ghana Revenue Authority and the NPA to set up and plug every leakage, every hole in the value chain. So it is either NPA is not up to the task or NPA is complicit in what is happening. And I will want the government to, as quickly as possible, appoint a substantive chief executive for NPA, appoint a new board that will be up and doing, and also investigate, cause the state security agencies to investigate how and why these things are still happening, because serious revenue is being lost.
Is it something you want to bring to the floor of Parliament?
Well, if Parliament was in session, I would have filed an urgent question, but we are not in session.
No, you talk about it's either NPA is not up to the task or they are complicit in what is happening.
Or both.
Or both. Fine. But what's your own suspicion, reading the situation and everything that you know?
Well, at this stage, I will want to keep my suspicions, since they are suspicions, to myself.
You're watching Joy News today with me, Bernice Abubedulansa. Coming up shortly in business, Ghana's exports earnings expected to pick up strongly in the coming months as commodity prices hit pre-pandemic levels. We've got details right after these messages.
Hi there, time for business. My name is Darryl Kwal. The country's earnings from exports are expected to pick up strongly in the coming months. This is based on a new World Bank report which shows that commodity prices have hit pre-pandemic levels. George Rafi has details.
The World Bank report revealed that the development was influenced by a pickup in economic activities as a result of ease in COVID-19 restrictions. Crude prices, which hit a record low levels from last year, rebounded strongly to hit $70 a barrel before slowing to $63 by the middle of April this year. Agricultural prices, including cocoa, are expected to record about 14% hike for this year. The World Bank, in its Commodity Price Index report, is also projecting an 850,000 metric tons of cocoa production for Ghana this year. The country ended last year securing about $14.4 billion from the export of cocoa, gold, and crude oil. However, this represents a marginal decline compared to what we secured at the end of 2019. The Bank of Ghana attributes this to declining crude prices on the international market. Now, securing some good earnings from these exports will immediately impact on the Ghana cedi stability, as we may get more dollars, resulting in an improved international reserves position. It will also affect government's revenue, so we can get more money to finance ongoing infrastructure projects. However, there's a flip side to this development. Ghana also consumes crude oil in terms of finished petroleum products, so if the prices start going up on the international market, there'll be a negative impact on the Ghanaian economy in terms of high fuel prices at the pumps. This could affect the cost of living and associated impact on inflation as well in the coming months.
Now, EcoBank Ghana says it is positioning itself to generate more revenue and improve on its financial performance this year. According to Executive Director and Chief Finance Officer Dr. Edward Botre, the bank's digital agenda has been one of its core backbones for success.
I think EcoBank, as a bank, as you all know, we have pursued a digital agenda over the last few years. And basically, I think we have reaped some of the benefits of that agenda. And we continue to find ways to improve, to become the kind of bank that we want to be. As you know, we began as the smallest bank in Ghana. And in 30 years, we've grown to become the biggest bank in Ghana by far. And this is a commitment that we continue to aspire to do a lot more in that regard. So yes, 2020, we did our best, but we are committed to doing more.
Well, in other news, the General Secretary of the General Agricultural Workers Union, Edward Kariwe, says the economy appears to look good on paper, but the figures do not reflect the reality. He was reacting to recently released GDP growth numbers, which showed the AGRIC sector contributed significantly to the marginal growth witnessed last year.
It has been good, but you see, because we don't actually eat figures, but we eat what is on the ground. When you look at the performance vis-a-vis GDP, it looks good. But when you go on the ground, that is a different story. And our focus should be what is on the ground rather than the figures. You know, when we go on the ground and the food situation is good, the people themselves will state it, you know, and that is what we should be looking at. We have over-depended on figures and GDP for a long time, that we now think that GDP figures per themselves constitute a real living standard for our people. It is not. The real living standard is measured on the ground. Well, that is the artificial one. But when you want to test the GDP, you go on the ground and test it. And when you go on the ground, it's a different story altogether.
That's your business update. There's more coming up on the marketplace at the top of the hour. The news continues.
Good afternoon, welcome to Showbiz here on Joy News. Now, President Akufo-Addo has launched the $25 million presidential film pitch series, whose aim is to help make Ghana's film industry a significant contributor to national development. Launching the series on Wednesday, he noted that Ghana has abundance of forts and castles and national parks, historic places, wildlife and festivals that could be filmed and marketed for tourist purposes. There's more in the following report.
The journey to become the biggest film hub in West Africa begins with the Presidential Film Pitch Series, a project meant for entrepreneurs in the film sector to pitch their ideas and hopefully be chosen for the final cash prize. CEO of the National Film Authority, Juliet Asante, tells us more.
This will help motivate the production of good Ghanaian movies that will find markets globally. The Presidential Pitch Series is a pipeline down the value chain intervention that addresses a huge gap in the system. It creates the marketplace for good ideas within the film ecosystem to align with the investment they need on one hand and the distribution on the other hand. to help ensure a good return on investment whilst reaching audiences in Ghana and globally.
The future looks bright for the creative arts industry. Minister for the sector, Mohammed Awal, tells us why.
We would invest in this ecosystem to make sure that our artists, filmmakers, musicians inclusive, become rich and comfortable. As part of the President's effort to create jobs and make Ghanaians rich. In this connection, Mr. President, we want to help produce 200 movies every year. 200 Ghanaian movies every year. And that will generate approximately 40,000 jobs every year from the film sector alone. We also want to encourage the production of film scripts. If you have a film bank with good scripts, they'll have very good films to show.
And in case you are wondering when the cinemas are reopening, here is what President Akufo-Addo had.
And I want to conclude on a matter which I know is of great concern to many of you, that the opening of cinemas is under constant review by the COVID-19 task force. And hopefully, we'll hear from the task force very soon.
Time for sports on Joy News today with me, Muftar Nabila Abdullahi. The president of the Ghana Football Association, Kurt Okreku, has described the public reaction to a proposed initiative by the Ministry of Youth and Sports to raise $25 million to cater for national teams' preparation and participation in upcoming assignments as unfortunate. According to the Football Association leader, the move by the sector minister, Mustafa Usif, is a good one and deserves commendation and not censure. Earlier this week, the office of the president had a breakfast meeting with the Ministry of Youth and Sports, the Ghana Football Association, and some chief executive officers of corporate institutions in the country. The meeting was to raise $25 million for national teams' preparation and participation in continental and international assignments. The general public has censured the move initiated by the Ministry of Youth and Sports. President of the Ghana Football Association, Kurt Okreku, described the reaction as unfortunate.
Well, I think it's most unfortunate. It's not really about the Black Stars. It's about the football industry. It's about all our national teams. But the truth of the matter is that in sports marketing, you need to identify your most attractive brands and leverage the strength of the brands. In the Ghanaian ecosystem, the biggest brand, the most attractive brands is the Black Stars and is the GPL. Okay, so we need to leverage that to ensure that we bring more people to be interested in our sport.
Kurt Okreku added that the Minister of Youth and Sports, Mustafa Usif, should be commended and not condemned.
Well, I think that it's a very, very good initiative by the Honorable Minister. The campaign was clearly and is clearly aimed at all our national teams. Black Stars inclusive, CAN, upcoming CAN in Cameroon exclusive, World Cup qualification games inclusive. Beginning, ending of this year, all our national teams will be in action. We need to start preparing them. Next year is an extremely busy year for all our national teams. So that singular effort by the sector minister is right, is a step in the right direction. We have to support him because football is capital intensive. It is capital intensive. The rewards that come with we watching football is unquantifiable. This is what people must understand, okay? When we watch football, even though maybe you may not be benefiting directly by way of money, the benefits it's amazing, okay? We derive satisfaction from watching football, and you cannot place figures to this, for which reason every country, every government would always want to support the passion of the people, and this is what the minister and the president of our land has initiated.
The highlight of the meeting was the target of Black Stars winning next year's African Cup of Nations and reaching the semi-final of the FIFA World Cup to be staged in Qatar. And yesterday, the Ghana Football Association launched the Juvenile League. Many players have benefited from Coles football. The system produced Ghana's all-time leading goal scorer, Asamoah Gyan. The 34-year-old, who is a product of Coles football, reckons the initiative will boost the fortunes of Ghana football in recent times.
During my days, I was very, very deadly. I started from the coast level, so it boosted my confidence. Even when I came to the Premier League, the confidence was already there. You could see the atmosphere, you see the fans very, very close to the field. So when they graduate and they go to the Premier League level, the confidence is already there because the fans are very, very close to them. They won't panic. This is how we started from the coast level. We started from this level and then we got to where we are today. For Ghanaians to push this thing because Ghana is a football nation. We've got quality players, we've got young, hungry players who are coming, we've got players who are looking up to us, who wants to do something in future, to help their families and everybody. So it's very good, and I'm sure we will revive it.
At long last, we have gotten back to what we used to admire.
We will see great players from.
And Coast Football produced the likes of Laie Kingston, Stephen Appiah, Godwin Atram, and so many players. And this initiative, many believe that will change the fortunes of Ghana football in the foreseeable future. That's all your sports for now, but there's more sports on myjoyonline.com/sports. I am Muftau Nabila Abdullahi.
I'm grateful that you stayed here on Joy News today. Now, the national chairman of the New Patriotic Party, Freddie Blay, has explained that the decision by President Akufo-Addo to cut down the size of government and appoint members of parliament as deputy ministers resulted in the Volta region receiving fewer ministerial appointments. He further indicated the region received one sector ministerial appointment because it produced one parliamentary seat for the governing party. Mr. Blay, who was reacting to an uproar on the few ministerial appointees from the Volta region, believes the situation will change in the future if the party wins more parliamentary seats there. He was speaking to the media after an engagement with the NPP Volta region and constituency executives in Hull.
But we have just a seat, as I'm telling you. The president made it his decision that he wants to cut down on the size of, because a lot of criticism in the past had been on against the size of the government. Now he made it as a policy to give deputy ministerial jobs to those who mainly are in parliament, except very professional positions. And apart from the Attorney General, then a couple of people, 2 or 3 people, most of the deputy ministerial appointments went to members of parliament. You could see that Volta region has only one ministerial position, and that one went to the only member of parliament that comes from the region. It's a pity. Next time, I believe there will be more positions or more ministerial and deputy ministerial positions from this region. And I believe they've already promised, the party has promised, they work harder, ensure that we have more ministers. The government takes its decisions based on policy directives and its manifesto, and is developing this country irrespective of geographical location, dependent on the needs of that region. And indeed, we think we are, as a nation, and this government is more interested in ensuring that we develop as one nation and not just as individual regions. And it's not paying particular attention to any other region more than a particular region. I think development is being spread across all regions.
On that note, we end this edition of News Today. I'm grateful that you can make time to join us. There's more news when you log on to myjoyonline.com. I am Bernice Abubedulansa, and this is Joy News, your home of independent, fearless and credible journalism. Do stay. The Marketplace is up next.